All right. I am back again. This is Jimmy back with the Refining You Foundation and another series on our men and healing those wounds and everything that's about us. Tonight I have Steve Severson and I have Marcel Wright. Just a quick introduction about these two. I've known Steve now for probably about 2 years now. We really got a great relationship after we were both the leadership of the Veterans Employment Resource Group for Washington State. We just formed a great relationship since then. And Marcel Wright, he got introduced to us through a mutual friend. And we all sat down in this one little coffee shop one day and just had this nice, beautiful conversation about what does it really mean to leave the military? What does it really, what are all these emotions that we go through? So I'm not going to take up too much of that time because I really want them to talk to you about who they are, what they represent. So Steve, we're going to start off with you. Just a quick intro of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Severson. I'm a Marine veteran. Currently, I work for the state. I'm a local vet rep for working with businesses to find opportunities for veterans. And like Jimmy said, we met at the VERG, the Veteran Employee Resource Group, and we just spawned a real great relationship. And then we met Marcel. Marcel, why don't you go introduce yourself?
I'm Marcel Wright. I just retired from the Army after 13 years medically. So that's the military. But as far as like civilian me, I'm the chief of operations for Trident Coffee Roasters out of Imperial Beach, California. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization as well. I'm also an MBB candidate, so a Master's for Business for Veterans from the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business. So fight on.
Fight on. All right. So what we're going to do to get this conversation started, we're going to go back to that time where we all sat in that little bitty coffee shop. We got introduced to Marcel through a series of events that describe some healing, a whole lot of healing. So Marcel, we want you to kind of do a quick introduction of what began its process to help you see something. And the organization that we're probably going to be focusing on is Save a Warrior. Am I correct, Marcel?
Yeah, Save a Warrior.
It helps me remember by saying SAW and linking it.
Yeah,
but
the
link
literally
is
a SAW.
absolutely. And the link to that organization is within. Eve is going to have that posted for you guys to check out for those. It's additional resource to have in your toolkit. So go ahead, Marcel, just kind of give us that story that we all had on that nice coffee shop day.
So guys, I'm a very real person. Okay. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I went to Mississippi State University, so I don't really have a lot of words, but what I'm going to tell you is the truth. Okay. I enlisted in the Army first. From there, became an officer. It was an amazing choice. It was an amazing opportunity. Throughout that career, Afghanistan, Germany, commands, all these other things, you start to pick up a lot of baggage. You start to pick up a lot of things that aren't necessarily you. You know that they're not you. You don't have to say nothing. You don't have to even look guilty or think about it right now. But you know that those things aren't you. When you transition out, when you're looking to transition out, all of those things that aren't you tend to start dying and start like rotting. And we either hold on to them or we get rid of them and we grow. I got that decision kind of forced on me in some ways. I ended up, as I said, retiring medically. So it was just one of those things of like, okay, I'm the senior captain. I'm getting looked at for the major board. I'm pretty much doing like, I'm not worried about this at all. What I am worried about is that I'm going to be PCS into my next duty station, not really being able to run because my hip really, really hurts. And I've been putting off going to the doctor. So I go to the doctor says, hey man, you need a new hip at 31. And that's rough. That's real rough. I don't know a special mission unit or any type of unit that's going to take that person,
So when you got that news, Marcel, and Steve, you can chime in, with your questions too. So when you got that news, at what point did you feel like, is this the end? Or is this the end?
Well, it was right after the surgery. It was right after the surgery when the surgery wasn't going well. I didn't respond. during physical therapy. Like I just wasn't healing fast. Because I was drinking way too much too, to be honest with you. You know, I'm just going to be real with you. Like, that's something that we're just not, we don't really talk about a lot in the military, but it's something it's real. For all intents and purposes, I was a high functioning alcoholic. And that's that's not something that I say lightly. It's just, it's the truth, right? When you can drink a half a bottle of Jack and Coke and then get up the next morning and PT your ass off, man, that's not hard, bro. That's not cool.
Gotcha.
You know, yeah. So, as I was saying, what ended up happening was after the surgery, I wasn't healing, and it was just one of those things of like, man, this might be it. Especially when the doctor's like, hey, well, we can now go for a full hip replacement instead of this partial, and I'm like, he's like, but that generally fails too. And I was like, wow. He's like, especially if you keep doing what you're doing, and I was like, wow. And that's when that realness set in, like you were talking about, Jimmy.
Gotcha. So, Steve, I'm gonna bring you into this conversation because you're on the other side. You know, former Marine. You know your experiences with the VERG as well, and now you're helping these guys actually trying to find employment, right?
Correct.
You know, when you meet a Marcel, and this is before we get the refined product, how do you kind of help them navigate through that process?
Oh man, well, that's a big question. I'll try and answer it best I can. Well, I kind of start to address some of the things that Marcel talked about. I first want to get to know him because we're both vets, and I want them to know that it's safe to talk to me. I feel like, Marcel, you started to kind of touch on that that fragile identity crushing experience that happens when you find out that you're human and you can break, and then you are broken.
Right.
And you can't keep doing the same mission, and so that's hard for us to accept. And I'll raise my hand and say, yeah, I was also that high function alcoholic for a little bit. Go home and drink half a fifth to myself, and then wake up and go do Marine PT in the morning. But we're trying to deal with it, and that's hard to do. And one of the best ways to deal with it is to talk about it. Is just have someone to talk to, relate to, who can understand, if not the same exact situation you went through, something very similar to that.
You have to know what right looks like, Steve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to know what right looks like. And that to me is just the biggest thing. A lot of times, we have all these different, there's 1,000,001 different vets, once you get out, that you can model yourself after, right? But like, which one of them's the right one?
Right.
And that's the question I think that a lot of people tend to ask themselves as they transition out, like, which one do I want to be like? Which one? And then the other thing is, we're too ashamed to tell people that, hey, look, I want to be like you. That's another thing. We lack that vulnerability.
But
too.
Marcel, let's break that down even further. Sometimes it's not even about I want to be like you. Sometimes I just want to be something or someone.
Yeah.
And it's that little piece where they can't even make that decision about I even want to be like that person.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important part too.
Yeah, struggling to feel. I think that a lot of times, I know as a commander, a lot of the decisions I had to make went very much so against the way I felt. And that has a cost.
Yep.
All of it has a cost, right? For every decision that we make, for every decision that we don't make, right? For everyone that's forced upon us, especially.
Right.
There is no amount of federal tuition assistance or BAH that's worth your humanity, right? But all of us in some way, shape, or form said, okay, well, I'm cool with that for right now, right? And being able to accept that the way you are right now is not how normal people act. And that's okay. And it's all right, because there's a lot of people like you. But you have to be able to figure out how to turn that on and turn it off, and how to be able to transition, right? And that's the key word, that transition, right? Like, it is truly a transition. It's not getting out of the Army. It's not getting out of the Marine Corps.
That is right.
When we transition, it's a lot. It's not only mental, it's physical, it's all these different things. being honest with yourself about all the safeguards and like that you have in the military. Like for instance, my wife and I forgot to register her with TRICARE. I forgot.
Ooh,
why? Because
I had
someone in S1 when I was in command. I had someone in S1 or someone in my orderly room that helped me take care of that. That reminded me of that. I started to realize how bad my memory really was. You know?
Absolutely.
You know, that's a real thing. You just brought up memory. I can remember back before the Marines, I feel like I had a crystal clear memory, and you know, some of that's part of age. But through a lot of the experiences that we go through that we both are talking about right now, you start to compartmentalize a lot.
Yes.
And it happens when you're in, and it continues to happen when you're out, because that transition process, I don't know about you guys, but it never stops.
It never. You're right. So Marcel, I want to speed up your timeline now, right? We had the surgery. We've been identified that you can no longer serve. At what point, what's going on now?
I'm trying to hold everything. I'm trying to do everything I can to hold on to it and really, really, really hold on to the Army. I'm saying, I'm looking at getting out and all this other stuff, but I'm trying so hard. I remember my infantry regiment that I was in at the time was having a weight lift. We were having like a commander's cup, and like I was a huge Olympic lifter before I got hurt. So I'm like, hey, yo, let's do this, right? So I go in there and I'm like maxing out on everything. I think I like further delayed everything that I was doing as far as recovery, because I went in there and I like squatted, I think like 375 or something. It was crazy, right? I felt good about myself, but I hurt so bad the next week, and I'm talking, I'm maybe literally 2 months out of surgery, out of a partial like hip replacement, like resurfacing and stuff like that. So it was just, I was trying everything in the world to hold on to it. I was modifying my kit. I was doing all these things to get lighter. And I saw one of my battalion commanders, his name is Nathaniel Conkey. He's actually the PMS, the Professor of Military Science at Auburn University now. Absolutely amazing leader. But he pulled me in his office and he said, Marcel, like, you're how you doing? And I was like, hey, sir, I'm doing good. Just, head down, just trying to make it. I'm good. He's like, I can tell you're not doing so well, because I can tell. And I was like, wow, that's the first time one of my bosses has ever I took it as if he was like saying, you can't do your job. I was super offended. I was like, what do you, sir? I'm like, my bad. Like, he was like, no, Marcel, I can just tell you're not doing well. I was frustrated at the most simple tasks. It was all these things. It was, once that one thing happened, I'm telling you, that one little chink in my armor got hit. And after that, everything else started to unravel. All that guy that I told myself I was, all that guy I was, and all these different places, all those things that everyone had wrote about me on all those OERs and then all those awards and stuff like that. Yeah, that guy was in question, and I was not liking that.
It's amazing that you mentioned you're chinking your armor. Most veterans don't find out they have a chink till after they get out, and it is interesting for you to just say that while you're still in uniform, and recognize it while you were in uniform, that yes, I am a soldier, but I'm not perfect. I'm not the man.
That's hard.
And your boss recognized that. So I think that's a real big, that to me, that is probably the leader of all leaders, taking care of you holistically.
And then he, not only that, but he also realized that I couldn't do what the unit needed, but at the same time, there was better treatment out there for me than what my unit offered. So he petitioned for me to get into the Warrior Transition Battalion, and that was hands down the best care I've gotten in the military ever. But it was the best care that I ever got because I leaned into it, and I didn't even lean in all the way.
Got it.
Now, prior to me going to the WTB, the main thing that got me on board to wanting to go to the WTB was I kept having all these thoughts, and then I kept ruminating on certain things. I'm a longtime firearms advocate, always. I have plenty of weapons. I love to shoot recreationally, and And so it was one of those things where now I'm really starting to fixate on, like, you know what, like, maybe I can just get this next deployment out of the way, and like maybe I'll just try to go to the highest speed unit that I can, and then like maybe something will just happen or whatever like that. Because my kid's already taken care of. I don't really know how to be a dad to him right now anyway, because when he screams or anything like that, he does anything to be a 2-year-old, I respond like a commander, which is not cool, right? Because he's my son.
Yeah. I want to mention these comments too. Always also conditioned to compete with everything and everyone in order to not feel left behind. Maybe sounds like one of our, and also trying to continue to lead by example when we are hurt because we are soldiers. A lot of us do that. We we run through our pain. We keep going, trying to keep going through our pain. So Marcel, now I want to speed up even more, right? Because I know what the conversation is. I know how powerful this conversation that we all sat at that table that day, and we literally was there for what, about 2 hours almost?
Yeah, somewhere around,
roughly.
Yeah. And just absorbed by your story. So let's speed up now to where it's time for you to leave.
Yeah. So it's time for me to go, and I'm just really not having it at this point. And my walls broke. Everything broke. I remember sitting at my house. I had my gun in my hand. I was ready to go. I was done. I was checked out. And my now wife just looked at me and told me that she loved me and that it was okay, and that she really wished that I would choose to be here. Man, and that it meant the world to me, because in that moment I wanted to be here. I just didn't know, right? So I started immediately looking. I'm a loggy, right? So I immediately started looking up stuff, right? I find this organization called Save a Warrior, and the thing that reached out to me about it is they said you had to come as dry wood. That meant I had to stop drinking. So I think when I went to Save a Warrior, I was 7 days sober, literally 7 days sober, and probably one of the hardest week of my life. But when I went there, I was dry wood. I had a hour-long conversation with Brian Haggerty. I submitted the Save a Warrior application on Friday. I had a phone call on Monday morning with them saying, "Hey, who are you? Let's talk." That weekend, I was in a cohort. I was in the seat. When I got to that place, it it shook me, because I had one of the biggest Rangers from like 375 ever, like massive guy, Blackwater contractor, triple canopy contractor, hug me and tell me he loved me as soon as I got off the plane. And it shook me. Who is this guy? And how can he tell me that he loves me with this huge Ranger Battalion shirt on? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't love me, man. Like, but Pat did love me, you know? And he showed me that he loved me. When I was at Save a Warrior, the biggest thing they talked about was that we're in this black triangle, right? And that triangle is shame, right? We have so much shame that we deal with on a daily basis. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up in Mississippi in biracial family. Like, I had more stuff walking into the military than I knew I even had. You know what I mean? So if I was that jacked up before I came in, what do you think Ghazni in 2013 did? What do you think Germany doing Atlantic Resolve did, right? What do you think a divorce in between that does? Birth of a child, right? Not being able to be around that child. I'm constantly adding up all these things, and they're rolling into this thing of shame, right? And then in order for me to get through that shame, I had to deny it constantly.
Yep.
Right? So I'm like, no, that ain't me. You know what? My ex-wife was 100% wrong. Nope. That did not happen. That was not the truth. Right? In order for me to in order for me to get over this, I got to deny something, right? And then after that, I go to the numbing, and that's where the drinking came in, right? And then, man, in order for me to get through the weekend, in order for me to get through the day, because really, I miss my son that much, or really, I even missed, at the time when I was divorcing, I missed my ex-wife that much. You know, instead of being able to say, like, you know what, I do that, I'm going to numb it out. And then I would then feel shameful again. Why? Just because I had to drink in order to get over that. And you get in this stuck, which also rhymes with another word, right? Triangle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was like a lightning bolt, because one of the exercises there, Jake, with the CEO and founder, he would yell. He would just randomly enunciate words and would yell, and it would shake me. And here it is, I'm ready to fight. I'm like, Jake, you do this one more time, man, let's go. Like, I'm not about it, right? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, Marcel, does that bother you? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. He was like, oh, guess what? Did you know that your son Caden does the exact same thing when you yell at him for being a 2-year-old? And I cried like a baby. I'm talking like boo-hoo snot bubble cried, right? Like I felt horrible.
Right.
But I was doing that. You know, if we don't realize where we are and realize our own trauma, then we tend to cause more of it, and we cause more of it on the people that we love, right?
Absolutely. So I think you just hit on some key pieces that I kind of, I've been hitting on with different veterans, as I talk with them during their transition piece. And I call it generational curses, because that's exactly what it is. You tend to pick up the emotions and all these things and bring it with you forward into your next relationship, into your work, or whatever that is, but not realizing that everything that you learn in one area here is actually toxic, and you're just continuing that piece and passing it along.
It's cognitive dissonance at its finest.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
We know for a fact that people aren't treated this way, right? We know that you're not supposed to do these certain things, right? But in this organization, you can do those certain things, and this person's a person, so like it's okay, right?
And they normalize it as
Yeah,
okay.
and I hate being talked to, I hate being talked to not like a human being, but yet I talk to people not like a human being.
Absolutely.
It's that cognitive dissonance.
So Steve, I want to bring you into this because you meet these people. You're trying to help them get employed. How does that interfere with you trying to do your most basic, essential function of your duties to try to help them?
Completely. It's interesting. Yeah. So you get a veteran that comes in, let's say that they're still in their head, right? They're still this person, still this rank, still, this is my identity, kind of like what Marcel was describing. It's this image that I've created of myself. And they'll come to me and they'll, tell me all about that, and we'll build some rapport. Like, yeah, I did this in the Marines, you did that in the Army, Navy, Marines, whatever. And we'll get to know each other. And then I'll start asking some hard questions. Things like, okay, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that because this person's doing it, or that person's doing it, or that makes this money, or whatever. And I'll just be kind of like, but what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? It's a hard thing for them to shake that, to be able to take themselves out of that memory and create themselves in a new image of who they are as a person. And it's hard because we try to work with them to help them understand it's not that people discredit your service. It's not that people don't like the military that you're going to meet or things like that, but you need to understand that they aren't going to understand, right?
Yes.
You can give acronyms, you can talk about all these different things, and it's not going to translate. It's kind of like what Marcel's talking about. Like we kind of talk to people this way because we were conditioned to do so. We were literally tooled to do that way by the military. Right. And that doesn't work out in the civilian world. Right? It does not work
in the civilian
out.
world. We all know that does not work in the civilian world.
Yeah. I got the opportunity to participate in hiring our heroes as I was transitioning out. Absolutely amazing organization. And I was Amazon Business's first ever person that they brought on, military fellow, right? And so it's a great experience. I'm in Amazon Business in Seattle, South Lake Union, and they're like, hey man, we're having a summit with all of our solutions consultants, and since you're our first one and you're good, like, let's go. So I get a chance to go there. So I'm in Boston. I'm talking in front of all these people at Amazon, right? And they say, hey, Marcel, you're in the military. Or you're in the military. When you all use checklists, because they were looking at redefining the customer experience by standardizing it across their organization. It's a new organization within Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. They say, with using checklists, like, what did you all see happen when you use checklists? I was like, well, when we use checklists, we saw an overall increase in survivability and lethality within the organization. And they were like, lethality? Survivability? Dude, like, whoa, like, calm down. But to me, I had no idea, right? And when I rewatched the summit with like my my mentor, he was like, yeah, no. Thank God that video's internal to Amazon. But yeah, don't be that guy. Don't be Marcel, guys.
You sound like that.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, those mock interviews with a couple of command sergeant majors that I went through, and I have to calmly come back and close the door and say, Sergeant Major, with all due respect, you can't talk about the war. No, that's not going to go well on an interview. No, we can't do that. So I get that. I get that. You are in that brain. You are in that mindset of, this is how I answer because I'm a soldier.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I think that Steve hit the nail on the head when he was talking about that. What do you want to be? What do you want to when you grow up? You know, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what are you for? Like, you're not following a training schedule anymore. Like, nobody's gonna get mad if you just want to go to grad school. It's okay. Like, no one's gonna get mad if you actually just want to go be a farmer or something. Like, that's cool too. Like, it's all right. The only person that you have to live up to is yourself, and that's it. And take care of your family, you know. And that's a really hard thing to grasp. It's like, what do you mean I can actually be happy? And what do you mean I can be happy outside of block leave? Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
You know, many other veterans that I come across, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I have to be out to be this type of person to make this type of money because I have to maintain this lifestyle because my family, this. And in the midst of the conversation, I say, I hear what you're saying and I understand. So that's acknowledgement. My question to you is that something you truly, do you really want to do that? You know, I can go into the statistics of hiring. It's easy. You know, one out of every 10 veterans within the first year, they lose that job because they figure it out that it's just not for me. It happens. It will happen. You know, so, you know, Steve is right on the money by asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think that's a very pertinent question because technically you're a baby again coming into the civilian world. You are a private again, just on a different level.
And then, you know, expecting to come in and like management, like for as amazing and as much as I love the United States Army, like, to be honest with you, I love the United States Army, right? We gave a lot of things to a very poor kid, right? We are not as high speed as we think we are when it comes to certain like HR systems, when it comes to project management. I'm telling you, there are some things and there are some people in certain organizations that will run circles around you before you can even open your mouth. So being able to sit back and listen and learn from somebody that's younger than you, learn from somebody that didn't catch a mortar. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, be able to learn from that guy. Think about how smart and how hard it is for someone to do an MBA and then do an MBA at Harvard or then do an MBA at, I don't know, Marshall. I'm going to USC, right? That's a hard program.
Yes, it is.
And then from there to climb to a top 500 company and then to jump from multiple top 500 companies where they don't care if, you know, last time I looked at it, a scrum sprint didn't mean that you had to have like 1,000 people. You could do it with 4 people, right? So they don't care about numbers, right? They care about quality and the product. Not something that we're necessarily used to, just being honest. So taking that time to have to really kind of let that inflammation go down some and really talk to a bunch of people and really look and say and admit what you don't know.
Yep.
You know, because a lot of times people, we figure out that, and the other thing too, and just to kind of maybe move forward, we have to start looking out for our other veterans that are transitioning out, right?
Yes.
The more of us that go out and put that you can, you know, use Microsoft Excel on your resume, but yet like literally you can't, like you can just, I don't know, you can do a pivot
Color
table.
cells.
You know, you can color cells and make a pivot table, and then you can also maybe, you know, sanitize and rewrite a formula that the GWiz dude from S3 did 5 years ago. You know, you could maybe do that, right? Like the more of us that put that on our, we shoot ourselves in the foot because there's a lot of hiring managers out there that will sell you, and I'm talking sell you so hard, but when you don't pass the critical skills test, or when you don't pass that knowledge base, when someone hits you with a very very simple business formula and you can't do it, because you don't really know it, but because your old battalion commander told you that you were the comptroller, you're basically a consultant and also a lean six dude. No, you're not. Be honest with yourself on that, and that's going to help your transition out a heck of a lot more, because you're going to be able to target what you don't know and really refine and really attack. Like you're going to stop shooting so much shotgun and start shooting rifle again.
Absolutely. I want to say this one out because we got a couple of comments out here from our listeners out there. Now you should ask, where do you see yourself, or what do you desire to do? And that's a very valid statement. And I have asked that to several. And you usually just get the deer in the headlight look, because nobody actually really thought it out that far. Another one is chase your purpose. Totally agree with that. But the problem is many of the veterans that leave, they have no desire. They have no idea of what their purpose is. And they usually don't find that out until long after transition. You know, some never do, because they still wondering, because they're stuck. As Marcel said earlier, they remain stuck in that event that I am a master sergeant that retired and I was the top gun. You know, every veteran that you meet, and the first thing that come out of their mouth is this story of what they used to be. They are stuck, and I have
there's a way to get out of that.
Shake them out.
There's a way to
shake them out of that. Yeah.
The number one way to get out of that is to have empathy.
Absolutely.
Empathy for self, empathy for others, and be able to accept human beings being human.
Absolutely. And let them know it's okay to live the moment, but don't stay there.
Yeah,
because that is part of who you are, but it's not who you are. It's different.
You know, a couple things there that I was hoping to touch on that we kind of did in rapid succession. But I'm going to just start with purpose, and it's a huge struggle when it comes to transition, because when you're in the service, there's no lack of purpose, whether it's your brothers and sisters, whether it's the mission, serving the country, whatever, right? Like it's all there. It's just ripe fruit for the taking. And you feel fulfilled as a person, right? You're a part of something, you matter. And that's why it's hard when you get hurt. You're not a part of that anymore. You're on the sidelines. You know, it's very detrimental. And especially when you get out, that's the hardest thing for you to find again, is that same kind of profound purpose that you felt when you were serving. And one of the best ways to combat that is we're starting to talk about right now. And because now I think we're moving on to like the move on stage of the life. It's just like Marcel said, you got to have some empathy. You have to be able to listen. And you really got to pay attention, and you really got to do it to yourself. I think that it's really good for us to project onto others, as we're talking about how we talk to our children, spouses, or what have you. It's really easy for us to not pay attention to what's going on inside, and that's how we're not able to fix ourselves. And it takes someone giving you a hug and just saying, "Hey, man, like, how you doing? I love you." Or, you know, having somebody kind of do something to just shock you out of that facade that mask you're hiding behind, to go, "Hey, who's behind there? Like,
Yes.
do you want to come out? I mean, are you ready for that? And sometimes we are, and sometimes we aren't. And it's a big process, and it never stops. Because Jimmie, just like you said, sometimes it's years and years until you actually find a purpose that is fulfilling to you as a person as it was in the service. And that's the hard part about, my job and, just anything involving trying to assist veterans is it's the long game. There is no such thing as the short game. If you're playing the short game, you're playing the wrong game.
Totally agree. Marcel, I want to jump up and speed up a little bit now, because you have entered the program. You're in this program. You have begun this healing process. How did that experience change you from this point forward?
I realized what was most important to me in my life. One, I realized that my life was important. First off, my life outside of the United States Army was important, flat out. From there, I started to really realize that, like, okay, not only is my life important, but now I had this huge question, and I didn't answer that question what I wanted to do in life until like November of last year. I'm like a month before I start transitional leave. I'm still kind of entertaining other things and stuff like that. And I said, you know what?
Right.
I'm just gonna stop. I just stopped, and I really sat. And what I wanted to hit on was the fact of the empathy, right? Like, that empathy is huge. Like, you have to develop empathy for yourself. You have to.
Right.
Because if you don't, you're going to get crazy, and you're going to drive your family crazy too, right?
Yeah.
And you got to get into some type of daily practice. That daily practice for me is meditation. I meditate every day. I'm not saying that I do it for 20 minutes every day, but I do it every day. If I can only do it for 2 minutes that day, if I can only do it for 5 minutes that day, if some days I might go for an hour, right? But I meditate. I take that little bit of time every day for myself, for me to be able to look at my thoughts, for me to be able to settle, right? Because in the military, you're so used to not settling. You're going to want to move. You're going to do all these other things all the time. You just need to settle, right? I remember my great-grandmother telling me when I was a kid, she said, sometimes you kids just need to learn how to sit at home, right? I remember telling me that. I'm in high school, and I hear that woman's voice in my head every day, right? And that last thing is you got to get in some positive groups, man.
Yes.
Don't get, like, I'm through my coffee company, I get a chance to know and meet everybody on Instagram and all that other type of stuff, right? And some of the people that have some of these pages that we look up to and that we embody are very, very hurt and very broken people, right? You got to get into some positive groups, and you got to start looking at positive people, and don't necessarily look at the things that make you happy, right? Because war videos used to make me happy and stuff like that too. Like, I love seeing, like helmet cam footage of guys performing, guys and gals doing work downrange, right? Because that's what I really identified with, right?
Right.
Those things weren't the best things for me to be looking at. You know what I mean? I needed to start looking at, I don't know, how to build tree houses with my son, which is like super fun. Or making like little board games, like little stuff like that. Like, I had to start looking at those things, right? You got to start getting into those positive groups and people that have positive works, not necessarily the things that, like, as I said, make you, when you look at them, they get you all excited and like, but maybe something that just interests you. I would tell you to get on Pinterest and get on YouTube and be like, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to know how a Cummins engine worked. Maybe I might want to be a diesel mechanic. Who knows? But you got to ask yourself that question, because you literally get a chance to start all over again. It's like going to MEPS the right way.
Absolutely. No, it's serious. No, with the availability of information in this day and time, you literally can remake yourself into anything you want to be. Anything. But I do recognize what you said. I recognize what you said about associating yourself with positive groups. And I attribute that to, for me, my faith, for an example. That helped me get through some things. But most importantly is the people who are going to pour back into you too, as well, from that, all that around that positive energy. Yeah. So yeah, you are absolutely correct. You're absolutely right.
And develop faith. That's a big
Absolutely.
thing. I don't care if it's in a higher power or if it's in just the people around you, or just faith in yourself, but developing faith something will work out and that everything will be okay. And that it's
Right,
all
right.
not, you know, like, it's so funny that we think a psychotic break, you know, and this is something that I really that became apparent to me at SAW as well. They do a lot of like, you watch a lot of movies, and during those movies, just sit down, because screenwriters are amazing people. They're very smart people. And one of those movies was a Silver Lining Playbook for me. And we talked about the identified patient, and you talk about, people that like, yeah, this person, we've always had that one guy in the unit that he snapped, and so he's crazy, right? But all the rest of us just talked about things that we did downrange that sometimes incur a little bit of blood and gore, right? But that's not crazy too.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have that battalion commander, or when you have that commander flip out in that commanding staff, because if you do this way, that person's gonna die. Well, I was that guy that said that. That was a psychotic break, bro. There was no one gonna die during that training exercise. But because of things that I experienced, because of things that I saw, guess what? That was a no-go, right?
Gotcha.
But so being honest with myself at where those little breaks were, and that, hey, guess what? I was experiencing more psychosis during the day than I was actual reality. Yeah, that was a huge thing. Being able to figure out where I was stuck, and being able to figure that out, and then say, you know what, I'm better than that. I have faith that I can get better than that. I have faith that the people around me are going to help me be better than that, and then I can do this. You should have faith in yourself every day. That's huge.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. And Steve, how do you, in your job, and continue that type of encouragement when they're getting rejection after rejection for applications or interviews and things of that nature?
That's a tough one, because I deal with that a lot, of people that I've applied for 30 jobs and I'm not getting any calls backs and things like that. Sometimes you need to address some things. There's probably some reasons why after 30 you're probably not getting a call back, which again starts to get that conversation going, to prompt some things like, well, how are you presenting yourself in your resume? Let's take a look. You're talking about killing bad guys. That's probably not the best thing to do. Jimmie going postal at the post office, right? It's not great. But
talking about forcing people to do stuff is never good, right?
Yeah, subordinates, don't ever use that word. Don't, no. That's colleagues, coworkers.
Gotcha.
There's much nicer, language to be using.
Yes.
But you have to really let them have the ability to see that things are actually moving. Like, hey man, remember all this stuff that we've done, or all this work that we did, or we moved here, did that, or at the very end of it, even after all those conversations, I try to just tell them, sometimes it just takes time. That faith factor, right? You have to have faith. You're worth something, and the right person's gonna see it, right? And we're used to, kind of always being in that competition mode, always having to be the best, which usually in our mind infers that we're the first, right? Like you're just gonna pick me, and that's just the way it is. And it's like, that's how it was. That's not how it is now. And that's how
one
it
of
is
the panel,
to grow.
One of our audience members said, we are conditioned to never fail. And I'm paraphrasing right now. We are conditioned not to fail, and that's so true. We never, there is no such thing as failure. What's up, Marcel?
I'd like to go back to that. I think that we're more so conditioned to not accept failure, right?
Right.
I agree with that.
I would say we're more conditioned to not accept failure, but in not accepting failure, we also have to be able to redefine success, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you don't redefine success, no matter like COVID has shown us right now, like even the most bulletproof business models have failed now.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Because right? It's ever evolving thing, and you have this company forgot how to redefine success, right? And it's just one of those things, you can't be married to it. You have to continuously pursue other opportunities. Like for instance, I said that in November I took a break, right? I just said, I'm going to chill out. I focused on an entrepreneurial effort that I had with Trident Coffee, and that was crushing it. And I was like, wow, like first and second quarter, even though there's this pandemic going on right now, we are able to do a lot of good and we're continuously growing. And then the opportunity came up for grad school. And I said, man, like, hey, sure, I'd love to go to grad school at USC. I didn't even think I'd be able to get in, to be honest with you, but hey, they let me in, right? I guess so I got in and I'm enjoying it, and corporate finance is killing me, but you know, it just the amount, it, you know, when I was looking at all these other job opportunities, I had a dollar amount on the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if I was able to tell you I surpassed that dollar amount by just making myself better by just going to school?
Mm.
You know, because there's 1,000,001 different ways to do things, right?
Right.
And
right.
we have to be open to that. You don't have, you can, if you can dream it, if you can think it, you can make money from it, and you can do it the right way. And you can grow your network, and you will know it, like you can, and you will know that you are capable of doing things, but you got to try it. You got to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to fail again, you know, and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah. And on that note, you said something really interesting, because you redefined something and you said we can't accept failure. And I think that, so as a military member, if we can't accept failure, then we can't accept ourselves. And that's exactly what happens when we either get hurt or even just when we get out. We have a hard time accepting ourselves because we start to view ourselves as failure, and we have a very unhealthy relationship with that. And to be able to do all the things that you're doing right now, Marcel, you're going to fail a lot, right? And those failures are going to be your teachers. They're going to be your mentors of, well, yeah, you kind of screwed up here. That sucks. But what did you learn from it? If you're paying attention and listening to the lessons that life is giving you. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I can pivot and adapt and I can move on. But you have to first start with yourself to be able to get to that point. Because if you have that initial little failure, it's going to break it down. And then you're going to stay down. And it's like, okay, you have a choice to make. Are you going to allow yourself to be Marcel, or are you going to try and be the person you were before?
Exactly. That ego will get you. You know, and being able to be honest with yourself and say, hey, look, I to be honest with you, I had no idea who I was. Absolutely no idea who I was anymore. The things that, like, before we got in today, I was teaching my wife how to skateboard, because that's something I did as a kid and I liked it. Right. And she thought it was super cool that I knew how to do that. So guess what? I was teaching her how to do it. Right. But did I do that at all while I was in the military? No. I had the best healthcare in the world and didn't do it. Right. You know, something that brings a smile on my face, even though I sit here and talk to you all about it. Right. You know, it's like, it's those little things. Like, I had fallen that out of touch with myself, that even things that made me happy, that make me giddy and smile like a child again, I couldn't even admit, or I had even forgotten about them, to be honest with you.
Same.
And I had to let that information die. You know,
I want to say something about that. You know, and I want to say this from this audience, on the audience members first. We surpass and serve at the same time, and that's so true. But Marcel, you said something that kind of resonates with me, because it was actually one of the foundational pieces I found out about myself. You know, when we join the military, right? And we go through that process to become a soldier, we actually shed who we are, literally, right?
If you did it right.
If you did it right, because you know you will. But once you get out, you have to redefine that person now, or actually you have to find that person again. I literally went through a transition piece where I had to discover the innocence of a child in me, because that innocence allows us to laugh at the dumbest of things.
Right? All the time.
Exactly. It allows us to just see things so differently and so often that we were like, wow, I never thought about that. But if we were still in that structured mind that we had that conditioned us, we would still be the serious soldier. Yeah. And that's what I had tried to explain with a lot of veterans. You are programmed. You're going to have to go through a deprogramming process to become who you are. And you're not even going to scratch the surface of that, because it's going to be layered so much that you're going to be like, man, you know what? I used to get up every Saturday and watch cartoons. Just with a big bowl of cereal. What happened? Why did I stop? Why did I stop? You know, or man, I used to sit up in the middle of the week and watch all my favorite anime and stuff. Why did I stop? Or I used to go to the comic store every Sunday, you know, with my friends and just get a comic book. Why did I stop? Because we lost the innocence of our childhood. We forgot how to actually laugh and have fun. But you brought up a very interesting comment when you say I was out there with my wife. And, you know, it's just one of the things I did as a kid.
Yeah.
You remembered that because you started scratching that surface to find that piece of you that you thought you lost, but it's actually there.
Now, Jimmie, we talked about something earlier that I really like to hit on again, and that was like the majority of us had so much trauma. Like I had so much trauma. I grew up without a dad, single mom, Memphis, you know, biracial.
Absolutely.
It was everything you could layer onto it, right? In the 90s, like generation, it was crazy, right?
Mm-hmm,
so, and that was all before I got into the military, right? So that's before I signed up 13 Bang Bang. So here it is now, you know, when you start going back and you start living, like kind of going back and get in touch with your inner self, and you start some of that memories of that childhood, and that's what Saw attempts to do, is to reconnect you with that child, right?
Perfect.
And get you to see that, hey, look, that child needs some attention, right? Because that child didn't get attention at some point.
Absolutely.
And then guess what? Because that child didn't get attention, that's the reason why you're putting people on blast on Instagram, and that's the reason why you're cutting people out of your life, and that's the reason why you're changing your cell phone number. Like I had the same cell phone number since 8th grade. If you don't have my number, if you say it's not there, it's because you deleted it, not because it changed. Okay, you know, it's
Absolutely.
like we have to get to the point to where we start to, and to be honest with you, that's going to take some conversations with not people that you might have talked to in the last couple of years. I had a conversation with my father. I hadn't talked to that man in 10 years almost, right? It was a good conversation, and it was one that an adult man had with another adult man. Right?
Absolutely.
Not that a child had with a man, super emotionally charged and all this other stuff. I was able to have that conversation with him about 3 months ago. Could I have had it a year ago? Maybe, who knows? But I was able to have that 3 months ago, and I was able to put to add even more closure to that old guy of what I thought I was, and enrich me and fuel me towards, you know, it's funny because I had the phone conversation with him, and then my ex-wife called me because my son had just got out of school and he just wanted to see his dad. That happened all within the same day.
Nice.
So, you know, it's like it was all for good, right? And Steve, you know, I love what you said about like you got to go back, you got to find that person. And what you'll find, guys and gals, is that when you find that person, you're gonna like that person because that person's gonna be happy to see you. But you got to be willing to dig and find them. You got to really be willing to dig and find them. They might be pretty beat up though, but it might look like a hostage rescue. But you know, hey, look, at the end of the day, like they're happy to see you, and you should be happy to see you. That's all I got.
And have the courage that when you see that person to say hello. And also something else I want to say too is, it isn't all on you. This isn't your war alone that you have to fight. I'm with someone right now who has been helping me to find that person. And if she hadn't, then I would be a much different person even today. And so, you know, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your girlfriend, boyfriend, a mentor, a childhood friend. Allow those people to bring you back, because just like Marcel said, I can't support that enough. Like they're going to be, that inner person is going to be happy to see you.
Yeah. One of my mentors told me, he said, you know, you need to stop focusing on being a captain in the United States Army and figure out how to be a general in your family, be a general in your life.
Yeah.
Kick me.
That's what I'm
like
talking
I was
about.
Like, Roger that. All right, track.
All right, we have 6 minutes, and I want to kind of open up the floor for any panel members. Panel members. Any of the audience who may have some questions for any of our panel members here. So now is the time to ask those questions. Bring them to us to the table. The information about the program that Marcel was talking about is inside of the talk group as an additional link. Please, if you don't need it, utilize it for someone who may need it. It is a, if I'm right, Marcel, it's a free program, but you have to go through a screening process for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to throw that out there and allow that information to come through. And looks like I'm just checking, make sure that we have any questions. No questions so far, and that's okay. But I hope you had the opportunity to kind of listen in to these gentlemen, listen to some of the information that was presented tonight. But most importantly, what did you get from it? And if you are that significant other, how can I use this information to help my significant other? Because trust me, if you ask and you ask the right way, they're going to break down. It's without a doubt. And they were just waiting on you to ask the right question. If you can't reach them, then there are other resources out there that you can be connected through the VA, through your local hospitals, through mental health organizations. The information and resources out there are endless. I just wanted to bring this segment tonight because it is most important to me as a man. It's most important to me that I put this message out there for other men who were once like me, who were too proud to confess what's truly going on inside of them for fear of what people may say about them. But if you are doing this for you, you shouldn't care. If you are doing this for you, then you know what the main goal is. For me, it was my family. For me, actually, it was just to find myself and affirm that this is who I am to the world, so that when I get with the right group of people, they're going to come back to me and say, wow, Jimmie, you're pretty spot on. That's what I want the world to see. And most importantly for me, for my daughter, I needed for her to see what being a father and a man in this world for a young woman who may eventually end up with a young man herself. So Marcel, Steve, thank you for tonight's conversation. It was very thoughtful. I appreciate you sharing some of your experiences, but most importantly, how you can facilitate and help the audience in the future. So you are always a champion with Redefining You Foundation. Shelly and I thank you for coming on tonight. And we are pretty much, that's it for us. Nobody have any questions, but we love y'all. Please come back again. We got another webinar coming up here soon, and we want to see you back. So stay tuned with Redefining You Foundation. This is Jimmie, and we are signing off for the night.